Everyone thinks swords ruled the Middle Ages. They didn't. If you wore armor in the 14th century, this weapon was your real nightmare. Not the long sword. Not the great sword. Not even the spear. It was short. It was ugly. And it didn't care how expensive your armor was. This is the Warhammer. And today, we're going to talk about why it made swords almost useless, why knights feared it, and why games still don't understand how deadly it really was. For centuries, swords were kings of the battlefield. Against cloth, leather, and chain mail, a sharp blade was devastating. But warfare evolves. By the late Middle Ages, armor changed everything. Mail was reinforced with plates. Plates became full harnesses of steel. And suddenly, cutting stopped being effective. You can't slice steel. You can't slash a breastplate. You can't skillish your way through physics. So warriors adapted. Not by making sharper swords, but by choosing weapons that didn't need to cut at all. Because you don't need to break armor to break the man inside it. When people hear Warhammer, they imagine something huge. A two-handed monster. Slow. Heavy. Almost cartoonish. That image is wrong. A real medieval Warhammer was compact. Balanced. Often one-handed. Most weighed between 1 and 1.5 kilograms. About the same as a sword. The difference wasn't weight. It was force concentration. Instead of spreading impact across a blade, a warhammer focused it into a single brutal point. Many had two sides. A flat hammer face for blunt trauma, and a sharp beak designed to punch into armor gaps. This wasn't a barbarian weapon. It was engineered. Harry's the part movies and games almost never show. Most knights killed by warhammers were not pierced to their armor. They died after the armor did its job. Blunt force travels through steel. A hammer strike dents a helmet. The skull inside absorbs the shock. A crushed breastplate breaks ribs. Lungs collapse. Internal bleeding starts. The beak's side is even worse. It doesn't slice. It bites. It catches edges, joints, visors. And once it's in, it doesn't come out easily. You didn't duel a knight with a warhammer. You dismantled him. Dark Souls actually gets part of this right. Blunt weapons stagger enemies. They break poise. They punish heavy armor. That's realistic. What isn't realistic is speed. Real warhammers were fast. They had to be. If you were slow, you died. Let's be honest. Swords are beautiful. They're symbols. They're romantic. But battlefields don't reward romance. Against unarmored enemies, a sword is lethal. Against armored knights, a sword struggles. A warhammer doesn't. It doesn't care about edge alignment. It doesn't care about sharpness. It cares about impact. The sword was elegant. The hammer was practical. Skyrim treats warhammers like giant clubs. Massive. Slow. Almost comical. In reality, that would get you killed. A real hammer user relied on timing, reach, and precision. Not brute force. Still, Skyrim accidentally gets one thing right. Blunt damage works better against armor. Because physics doesn't care about fantasy tropes. Warhammers didn't replace swords everywhere. And there's a reason for that. They weren't versatile. Against lightly armored troops, a sword or spear was often better. Warhammers existed for one purpose: killing armored elites. They were specialist tools for a specialist problem. And when armor faded from battlefields, so did the warhammer. The Witcher universe loves swords. Steel sword. Silver sword. Historically, that's backwards. Against heavily armored opponents, Geralt would be far better off with a hammer or mace. But swords look cooler. And that's why games choose them. History doesn't care about cool. Chivalry comes the closest. Blunt weapons stun. They break defense. They punish armor. Positioning matters. Timing matters. That's how warhammers actually worked. They weren't spam weapons. They were execution tools. Let's kill some myths. Myth 1. Warhammers weighed 10 kilograms. They didn't. Myth 2. They were slow. They weren't. Myth 3. They were only for finishing enemies. No. They were frontline weapons. Efficient. Deadly. Unforgiving. Imagine this. You're on a medieval battlefield. Across from you is a fully armored knight. You can choose one weapon. A sword. Or a warhammer. If you choose the sword, you're hoping for perfection. If you choose the hammer, you're trusting physics. History shows which choice worked better. The warhammer wasn't famous. It wasn't poetic. It didn't inspire legends. But it ended them. Swords ruled stories. Warhammers ruled reality. And if games showed medieval combat, honestly, this would be the most feared weapon on screen. If you enjoyed this deep dive into medieval weapons, subscribe to Blade and Barrel. Next time, we're talking about a weapon so powerful it was literally banned